Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Eric.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. We are currently here in New York City in between trips. We went to Los Angeles last week. We came back, and on Thursday, we're going down to Austin, Texas for our second South by Southwest in a row.
Yes, and the nice thing about leaving New York for South by Southwest is that you see everybody from New York down at South by Southwest.
And Nardwar.
And Nardwar, who runs after you down the street with a microphone going, "Who are you?"
Yeah, it's Nardwar in the wild.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's just throwing vinyl at people.
So Jeff, I'm looking forward to going down there because obviously Austin is one of the great food cities in America. And last year, I didn't get to experience anything. Like, sat down for barbecue, ordered it, and couldn't eat it because I was suffering from the world's worst sinus infection all week. So didn't eat a thing. This year, I vow to make up for all of that. I'm going to come back a fat man.
That is a goal.
I am just there.
That is a goal.
To eat.
You want to eat, you want to touch your food, you want to touch everybody's food.
I'm there to touch
dope.
everyone's food, me and Jeff and Nardwar.
Don't put me into this. I'm not.
We're going to be the new fat boys, the three of us. Yes.
Ha.
You're looking forward to going down there as well.
I'm looking forward to getting out of New York. There's some bad energy up here. I went to.
In what way?
I went to our local salad place, Sweet Green. You know, it's like a Chipotle format, right? Like you build your own salad, you build your own bear.
Yeah.
And I get 90% of the way through. I've made my salad, and they say the dressing that comes with this salad, we don't have any of it.
None of it.
None of it.
They're out.
Go fuck yourself.
Damn. So you went without any dressing?
No, what they said is choose another one. And so I am looking at the list. I'm like, none of these dressings make sense. Am I going to put a lime milkshake on my salad? No.
You're going to go for the garlic option?
No. None of these things make sense. So I was just like, I don't know. I'll choose the ginger dressing, which I do like the ginger dressing, but I like it on another salad.
Did you choose the ginger because it was the least offensive or because it caught your eye?
Well, like I said, I like it on another salad, so I was just like, whatever. Like, nothing's going to taste good. I might as well get this. And I order it, and the girl behind the counter, one is pouring it on, another girl goes, "That's disgusting."
Out loud.
Out loud. And
bad energy or just bad customer service? I don't know.
And so, you know, you pay for the thing, and they hand you the salad, and the girl then, I guess, made me notice that she had said it out loud, and she goes, "That's going to taste so good."
She lied. Wait, which time did she lie? Was she lying in the first place or the second place?
Well, let me tell you, not the greatest tasting salad I've ever had. Not the worst.
Well, okay.
But I was just like, man, like, I can see it in your eyes. You're just a liar. Like, you're lying to me.
Do you think that you would rather her tell you the truth, that it's going to taste shitty, or...
She should have been like, listen, we're all friends here. This was not a good choice. She should not have put that salad dressing on. What she should have done is scraped the inside of the container, gotten the remnants of the balsamic vinaigrette that would have made sense in that salad, and just given me, you know, just been like,
back?
Yeah, she should have been like, hey, let's do us all a favor, just get out of here and don't return.
You know what my favorite part of this is that whenever we do our interview with Nardwar, as in like when Nardwar interviews us on his show, this is the story that's going to come up, and we're going to be like, what? I have no idea that this ever happened in your life. He's going to be like, tell me about, you know, Ty.
No, you have to do it in his voice though. Ty Dolla $ign. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a good AKA.
Yeah.
THAI $ign.
Nah, it's not that great.
It's pretty good.
No.
I think
leave a comment. If it's bad, don't tell me.
I'm on. Yeah. Say it's gonna taste terrible.
Yeah.
Jeff. Last week when we were in Los Angeles, we did 2 podcasts, one with Nabil Elderkin, which was awesome. He's Kanye's photographer. And the other one we did is the one that we are debuting today with the great Shay Pope.
Yes. Now, a lot of people might not know the name Shay Pope.
Right.
He's worked with everybody from Teddy Riley to Wyclef to Lauryn Hill separately.
Yeah, well, to Dr. Dre, to Kanye West, to Hans Zimmer, the legendary film composer.
Yeah, by the way, Hans Zimmer is now working with Chance the Rapper. So,
is that true?
Yeah, there was a photo that came out last week.
Crazy. Well, maybe Che was the guy who facilitated that. Shay Pope has been everywhere, has worked with everyone, and if you're looking for stories, this is the podcast for you. Shout out to Shay Pope. Shout out to 88 Keys, who made the introduction for us. And shout out to everybody who's been listening to our podcast, new and old. We appreciate you spreading the word. Jeff, when do you want to get into this podcast?
Right now.
Yo, what up? It's Eric, a.k.a. Matching Donation, a.k.a. Ty Dolla $ign.
Yo, what up? It's Jeff, a.k.a. Gripping Grain, a.k.a. Carb Loading.
Che Vicious, a.k.a. Shay Pope, a.k.a. Che Guevara.
the real. Bow, bow, bow. Braka, braka, braka. Che, what's happening?
I gotta work on my nickname game.
I got so many.
I just gotta get it like so I can just spit it like a DJ. Though.
Yeah.
You guys have it down. The funk flex. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
DJ Quick was good at it too.
We were out here last month hanging out with our friend Mike Dean and Louise Donegan, and we were checking out their house, and we were getting the tour, and we went around back towards the pool, and they were like, "You'll never guess who stayed here for a while." Shay Pope, and we were just like, "You're kidding," and they're like, "No, look at the air conditioner, look what is carved into the back," and it was your name.
It was?
Yes.
Yeah.
It must have been my kids. But yeah, I had the house, the comedian Russell Peters owned that house.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting story. Russell Peters is a huge underground hip hop head. So he's had everyone from Lord Finesse to DJ Premier to like to the guys from shoot, what's the name of that? I can't even think of the band. It's so old.
Sugar Hill Gang.
No, close. Grandmaster Flash.
Okay.
Grandmaster Flash, but not Flash,
Yeah.
but Melly Mel.
Yeah.
In that house.
Crazy.
Like he would like have like wrote Big Daddy Kane. Like he
Just
loved
drop
these
by.
guys, so he loved when those guys come to LA, he would give them the guest house.
That's wild.
Yeah, so that made me even want to rent the house even more.
Yeah. Let's start at the very, very beginning. You're originally from Boston.
I'm originally from Boston, like kind of like Dorchester, Roxbury, and then like, you know, like those inner city kids, you get bused to the good neighborhoods. And
Right.
I went to school in Brookline
Okay.
to get a proper
Which is a very
education.
nice neighborhood.
Yeah, to get a proper education. You know?
Sure. So,
So where's your accent?
You know, I went to college in Virginia, and I got teased to no end. Like, you know, that was in the heyday of like people joking each other and all that. So I had to shed the accent
Yeah.
at the time.
Because like Dorchester's like a heavy accent.
Yeah, and it was necessary.
Yeah.
It was necessary. It was abusive. Like, you know, the teasing was abusive.
how big was your family?
I still have a big family. Well, I don't have any brothers or sisters, but I have a lot of cousins. My grandmother had 10 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Yeah, I think there was 11 of them total.
And how many lived in the Dorchester area?
And I could be wrong with that number, but I think that's right. They all spread out a little bit over time, but you know, because they were there. I mean, my grandma was born in 1926, so, but for the most part, most of them remained in Boston.
Yeah. And what was growing up in Boston like?
I think it really prepares you for the world. You know, when I went to college, everyone was like, "What was it like growing up in apartheid?" And it really wasn't that bad. Like, you know, I mean, it is
Well,
like
Boston has a terrible reputation.
I mean, you know, Bostonians are, you know, I mean, but it is true representation of life. I mean, I think Chicago, Boston, and Philly are very similar. They're neighborhood cities. So you have an entire, you know, you have an Irish neighborhood, you have an Italian neighborhood, you have black, you know,
Yeah.
and then you have, you know, the one area that it's getting more gentrified now, as we know, like kind of like Bed-Stuy.
Yeah.
But back then, the one area that was kind of like the gentrified area was South End. Of course, it was notoriously gay.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But
yeah.
no, but that was the one blending area. But other than that, it was neighborhood.
So an only child, though, did you have a lot of friends to make up for not having any siblings?
A lot of cousins.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I when I was younger, I used to ride bikes, like race BMX and freestyle and all that kind of stuff. So there was like a cool little bike crew that I hung with too, and you know, I was the younger guy of it, so that was good.
And what kind of music did you grow up listening to?
I grew up listening to, obviously in the house and the family was jazz and like soul and stuff like that. Although I think you just can't. What was great about Boston, and I always tell people this, I knew just as much about rock as I did about hip hop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just growing up in Boston and having friends, and you know, their parents were listening to the Beatles and this and that. So I got introduced to that way earlier than most black kids.
Yeah.
And were you listening to like Aerosmith or?
That was the Nat. I mean, you know, I think one of the things I discovered really early was AC/DC, and that was also because BDP had sampled it, and I was like, where did this come from? And that led me to Black Sabbath. So I was listening to like probably like AC/DC and Black Sabbath and those kind of things before I started discovering Aerosmith and some of the, you know, like some of the more mainstream stuff.
Did you play any instruments growing up?
You know, as a young kid, I started learning drums. Like I went to school from first grade to third grade in DC. My mom's from DC, and when my parents split up, I lived in DC from first to third, and it's almost like required.
Yeah,
there. It's like one of those things. If you're in DC public schools, you're a snare guy.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and then along the way, started taking some piano. So, but I wouldn't say that I would. Fortunately, like, well, actually, I still say something to my parents to this day about like not forcing me to take lessons.
Right.
But I had cool parents. They were like kind of like, oh, you don't want to do that, do this. Yeah.
And does that translate to how you treat your children in terms of their musical choices?
Yeah, I mean, both my kids are pretty musical. My daughter especially. My son has actually got a production set up now, so we'll see. You know, well, he's 15, but he's a skateboarder.
Okay.
So, but he has an interest, so I got him a setup, so we'll see if he jumps to it. But my daughter's real musical.
Yeah. So by the time you're looking to go to college, how much do you want to leave town and how much do you want to stay around Boston?
Oh, no, I wanted to leave. I think I left the day after high school. No, I just knew, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy growing up in Boston, and I wasn't one of those people that like hated Boston or something like that. I actually had great friends and, you know, enjoyed but I knew there was more. I knew there was other experiences. And I knew I need, you know,
Right,
I knew.
You've been to DC. You knew,
Yeah, I'd been to DC. I'd been around, you know, so I was ready to.
Yeah. So how many colleges did you really consider?
Well, I played basketball all through high school. So my initial thing was I wanted to be somewhere warm.
Yeah.
So the only colleges I sort of targeted for basketball were in Florida because I really wanted to be warm. So I did the college tour with my dad, University of Maryland, all that stuff, Florida State and all those things. We did the drive thing. On the way back, he was like, let's stop by this HSBC Hampton. My dad went to Howard in D.C., and I think they didn't want me in D.C.
Okay.
So he was like, well, let's see Hampton. And then turns out a friend of mine that was a year older than me that went to the same high school I did went to Hampton.
Right on.
And it was like 11-1 girls to guys.
Yeah.
That was it. It was over.
So you started Hampton, and what is your path there?
I started, you know, like most college students, like, I guess I'll be a business major. You know what I mean? And you dabbled in this and looking at, like, I don't even like that word dabbler. Dabble because it sounds, anyway, I could be a dabbler. Nah. You know, and you're trying to find your way. I realized, though, this is around the time that Allen Iverson was in coming up, and he was when I was a freshman, he was a junior in high school, so I got to see him as a junior in high school play.
Really?
And then as a senior, we played. You know, we'd go to this when he was a senior in high school and he couldn't play. We used to go to this Air Force base where we all played. So I got to see how good you had to be a pro.
Oh my God.
And then I was like, yeah, I'm good on the ball thing. And then that's when I really started focusing on music.
Man.
Because Allen Iverson was better than you.
I just, yeah, a lot, you know. And I thought I was good, and I was, you know, I was like, okay, I'm gonna play on the team and do my thing, and then I was like, wow, this guy's a junior in high school. Yeah.
Newport News, right?
Yeah. Well, no, he went to Hampton. He went to a high school called Bethel.
What is your experience like off campus like around there?
Well, it was great. This was the time where everything was sort of happening in this area. You know, you had Pharrell and Chad from the Neptunes finishing high school and signing to Teddy Riley. You had Missy and Timbaland hooking up with Devontae. They ended up leaving the Virginia Beach area and going upstate New York.
Yeah.
But all this was happening around this time, all around the same time. Teddy Riley came down and set up shop in Virginia Beach.
Yep.
Jay-Z was hustling, you know. Diddy was throwing parties down there. So all these people were coming. And then because my school in this area had so many pretty girls, all the rappers would tour there. Yeah. So I knew Busta, I knew Tribe Called Quest, I knew Naughty by Nature early, like, you know, just from being in this area.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's just sort of like you're at the same parties or
same parties, or those guys would come do shows locally, you know. I mean, like, it was almost like all of the rappers did seem to do shows there. And I was like, I wonder why.
And you knew Puffy.
I did. I knew early in Virginia years. I knew Diddy. I knew Fat Joe. I met Lord Finesse, Showbiz and AG, and those guys. Buck Wild from Digging in the Crates. Yep. All those guys. I knew somewhat of a drug dealer friend of mine who was from the. Well, no, I didn't know Jay then. I saw Jay there, but I didn't know Jay then. And this guy was from the Bronx, so he knew all the Bronx guys. And they would all come down, and it was cool. Like, you know, I mean, to this day, I still have to credit really Showbiz and Finesse really showing me how to properly dig for records, you know.
When you got to know these guys, was there any thought that you would work in this business?
At that point, I think I was still like this hobbyist producer, something like kids in college, you're still trying to find what you're doing. I mean, at one point, I took like an engineering class, meaning a proper like mechanical engineering class, and I got a 0. I mean, no, I mean not a F. Right. I mean like a 0. Like once you take a couple of tests and do a couple of assignments and you get 0s on everything, you're like, okay, maybe that's not my calling.
Sure.
Which is funny. Oddly enough, Dr. Dre told me, hadn't he been a a music producer, he would have been a mechanical engineer.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have been a mechanical engineer. You
No,
got, you got 0.
no, I would have. No, I would have been.
So finance is out, and
yeah. Well,
engineering's out.
I ended up being a finance major, so that's what I was doing. But I don't think I was, passionate about it, and I became really passionate about music.
What kind of tools were you using to make your music?
Back then, it was like I didn't own any gear, so I had to use other people's stuff. So at that point, the stuff that I had access to was like an Ensoniq. This was pre-ASR, so that was like the 16. They used to have an EPS 16. Before that, they actually had a Mirage. So I actually started on Ensoniq on this sampler called the Mirage. And then this is going way back. This is giving you real, and it's also dating me.
At dating time, yeah.
But SP 1200.
Yep.
So I definitely credit Finesse for that, because Finesse was like, yeah, get your drums better. He's like, you're good with the chops and you're good with the samples, but you gotta get your drums better. And I think what always set me apart a little bit is I had some understanding of music theory. So like a lot of beat guys just have no concept of music. They might have a good ear and good instincts, but they have no musical foundation. I still knew how to read music. I still understood theory. So when I was approaching doing stuff, I would be able to orchestrate my, if I chopped a sample, I'd be able to orchestrate it.
So would you sell your beats to anyone, or do you
no? At that point, literally just friends that had big car stereos. Used to I had a really close friend, and I credit him a lot. I like to say he discovered me and give him the credit for that, because he's from Boston, and his mom was in education. His mom and my dad knew each other. They were both in education, but we didn't know each other in Boston. We met in Hampton. We met through his girlfriend, who was also my girlfriend now. Well, my sometime girlfriend. Anyway, but that's how we met. So long story short, though, he was literally, I would say, my first, if I had to say my day one supporter and fan, it was definitely a friend of mine, Rick. Shout out to Rick from Boston.
And what did Rick do for you?
But he's the one who actually is the reason that the music was heard by Teddy Riley.
Wow.
He used to ride around in his car. He had a big system in his car, and he'd play my beats sometimes and this and that. And so
just beats and no one on top of
Nope,
him?
no one on top, just beats.
And so Teddy reaches out to you?
Teddy heard some stuff and wanted to buy something. But by the time I had gotten down there, I had so much new stuff that literally I played all this stuff for Teddy. Teddy just went in the back and came back with a contract.
So what'd you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I to this day, I still bring this up. He literally told me the contract's not really good.
That's what he said to you when he handed you the
and he said, I went through it, with Gene Griffith, you got to pay your dues. He's like, it's a beginning contract, it's 1 year. This is what it is, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, if I hadn't been for Teddy Riley, I don't think I would have ever made it in this business, because it was like my college for,
Yeah.
moving forward. Like, he taught me everything about making a song, versus just a track or a beat.
So do you immediately go and join him in the studio then?
We started working in his spot a little bit, but then we went away to Trinidad. There was at the time, this was around the time of potentially there was going to be a Guy reunion album. So he had Aaron Hall and Aaron's brother down there in Trinidad. So we worked in Trinidad, but we were also working on like Blackstreet stuff as well.
Were you sitting there just being like, how did I get here?
Yeah, it was a little surreal. I mean, that experience, just being in Trinidad making music with Teddy Riley and crew, was just surreal. You know what I mean? I'm staying in my own like townhouse and stuff. A couple of weeks before that, I was in my little apartment in Hampton Roads.
Yeah.
So
What had the better ratio, Trinidad or Hampton?
probably Trinidad. Shout out to the wife.
This is a long time ago.
That's right.
No, the wife was in the picture. I was still the girlfriend at the time.
So
She still gives me
you
shit.
have this 1 year contract with Teddy. What did you think was going to develop out of that relationship?
It's funny because you talk to your dad about, before you do things like this in terms of a leap of faith. Of course, someone who's been in college and, supposed to do, finish college, get a degree, get a job, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And so when you deviate, especially after, your dad's been paying money and this
Sure.
and that, you're like, hey, I want to try it. And my dad, to his credit, was very supportive. He was like, hey, you might mess around and do something you love to do. You know what I mean? You could go wake up every day and do something you love.
Yeah.
And I've never looked back. So
Crazy.
That's great.
Wait, what did your dad do?
He was a history professor and then an administrator.
You get through that 1 year with Teddy. Did you significantly contribute to
No, I had zero placements. Zero placements with Teddy. But it was definitely night school, day school. It was great. Like, I learned he used a program called Notator, which later becomes Logic. So I would, to use his stuff and his gear, you had to learn that.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm only, I'd only really known hardware stuff. So I was like, what software? What's, what's the computers? Like, what do you, so yeah, that was my introduction to that then, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's advanced learning too, because, that prepared me later for, certain things.
And what was Teddy's process like?
Teddy's a true musician, songwriter talent, like his unbelievable talent. He's one of those guys that, you don't realize how talented he is until you work with him, and then you see him in the studio and his knowledge of the studio and gear and everything like that, as well as being able to, the psychology, because at that point I hadn't worked with many artists.
Right.
So, I was one of those guys who was just in my, in my dorm room or in someone's studio I could sneak in or whatever. So I hadn't really had that hands-on experience with artists. And then I got to see the psychology you have to deal with, especially like people like Aaron Hall, who are very volatile.
Yeah. So Teddy is a real producer. He's not just
real producer,
a beat maker.
Real producer. Yeah, real producer, real musician, real chops.
Yeah.
So
when did you meet Pharrell and Chad?
I knew Chad actually, because going backwards again, because I didn't have any gear. I at one point I took a part-time job at the local store there. The local guitar center there was called A&M, and so I worked at A&M for like a month just to get the discount so I could get gear. And within that month, I had met Chad and Pharrell.
Crazy.
Yeah, and this was, mind you, at that point, no one really knew,
of course,
who they were and this and that, but Chad had played me some stuff, and I was like, wow, it's really good. Like, they were really good. Like, to be so young, because I think about where I was at that point.
They were the Allen Iversons.
Yeah, they were. They weren't there. They weren't that. But they were on their way to being the Allen Iversons. But you could see it then. Like, they were really good. Like, Chad played me some stuff. Matter of fact, a friend of mine I introduced Chad to bought a beat from Chad. Rick, the same guy, he bought a beat from Chad for like $1,000.
Man,
so that shows you when could you get a Neptune beat for $1,000? So,
not today.
Not
And did you run into Tim and Missy back then too?
I met Tim later. I had seen Timbaland before. I had a mutual friend who was good friends with Timbaland, and Timbaland's best friend at the time. So it was all kind of, I was aware of Tim, and so when Tim was blowing up, it was like the circle wasn't that big.
Do you subscribe to the idea that there is something in the water down there?
There's something.
Yeah.
There's definitely. You got Knots, you got Bink, you got these guys that have just, in my opinion, just prolific. You know what I mean? Guys that, meaning anyone can get lucky, right? You get a beat on the right artist, but it's can you be here for 5 years? Can you be here for 10 years? Can you be here, in my case, for 23 years?
Yeah.
That's.
So what do you say your sound is most like? Is it Virginia? Is it?
Well, because of the trajectory of my career, I've had to, there was 7, 8 years I worked with Dre. So, my sound had to be what his sound was. You know what I mean? I was able, what I liked about Dre, I was able to be creative and still inject Che into it. Yeah. But it was definitely, this is Dre's house. You know what I mean? This is Dre.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I think because of the trajectory of my career, I've had to be a hybrid at times. You know what I mean? When I did Bound for Kanye, that was me, in my opinion. I granted Yeezus was a departure from Kanye's sound, but that was almost like the resolve. You know what I mean? So if Yeezus was like, that was resolving it. So totally. Bound gave him that release to resolve it, and that's why he was like, and then the concerts were Bound. But Bound to me was me just, I was, before Bink and those guys blew up with soul samples, to me, Digging in the Crates was all over the soul samples. So I don't give, and I'm not dissing anybody, but like I know Bink, Just, and Kanye sort of like get all the credit for the soul samples. Well, they had a house, meaning Rockefeller, and these great artists to paint with soul samples. But Digging in the Crates was all over the soul samples way before that. Like, literally, I can remember going on record buying things with them, and they'd be like, so all the samples that were being used in the Rockefeller era, I was already aware of, and certain ones I didn't even touch, only because I knew Buck had played it for me, or I knew, Finesse had it, or I knew, so certain things I was like, I'm not gonna, but I give them the credit for taking the artistry of chopping and the Bink, the way he did the drums, and Just's preciseness. Just is a master beat maker, meaning he's a master. It's so precise. I mean, he to me makes beats like he's programming code. And then you have Bink, who's got the soul, because he did the drums to me that you almost thought it was a real drummer playing. You know what I mean? And then Kanye was probably the most innovative chopper, you know, in the way he approached samples. So I give them credit for elevating soul sampling and chopping.
Yeah.
But I give credit to Digging in the Crates for the soul sample.
Well, you know, earlier you said that Finesse and all them, they taught you how to dig for soul samples. Like, can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, at this point, people know the codes a little bit better. But back then, you know, when you go in a record store and it's got all these artists, you don't know the names of this and that. You start studying the musicians. You start studying the labels, you know, because, okay, this is a record you know and you like and it had samples on it. And you start looking at the catalog of who this label signed. And then you start sourcing. And then next thing you start seeing a pattern of these musicians playing on different records. So then you start searching for different musicians that you know, or different even producers that might have produced the records, and different songwriters. So and then you just spread out from there, you know. So that's like record digging 101.
So did you finish college?
I actually did not.
What?
I got a deal.
How much college did you get through?
About 3.5 years.
Okay, 3.5?
Yeah.
You couldn't
you
get
gave
through
up right
that
at the
last
end?
half year.
Yeah, I mean, one day maybe I'll do that. Try to do that for my dad, but we'll see.
Yeah.
This has worked out pretty good. So
Yes. So 3.5 years. Where do you go?
no, I did the year with Teddy, and then from there I actually went home to Boston actually, just to my girlfriend at the time. She had gotten a job in New York, and then I was still really tight with KG from Naughty by Nature.
Yeah.
So as things would happen, this is one thing I've never really spoke on publicly, but I will say this. So got in some legal trouble. Had nothing to do with me. Had to do with a friend of mine. We all have friends.
Yeah.
Not naming names, but you might have hit that. You know, you might have hit it right on. But long story short, I had gear at his house, in his garage. All the gear got confiscated. So I had to sort of go back to Boston to regroup, just to, you know, I had no gear, had no anything. Literally all any record collections I had, all that gone. So I went back to Boston, regrouped. You know, stayed with Pops for about 6 months, and sort of and KG actually loaned me an SB12, which is great, because all of the tracks that I made that were from being in Boston is what, when I came to New York 6 months later, is what I had a pocket full of tracks on. So when I was looking for opportunities when I got to New York, I had a pocket full of tracks.
Wow.
So shout out to KG, because, you know, there would be no Che without KG. So that's for sure.
And so where do you shop those tracks?
Well, I got to because of said trouble. I was on probation when I got to New York, so I had to have a job. So I had that little month job where I worked at A&M in Virginia. So I worked at Sam Ash Music for a month.
Yeah.
Did you get fired, or were you just like quitting? Or
No, I just left. Because I mean, when I did it in A&M, I just needed gear.
Yeah.
So I just worked long enough till I got the gear. As soon as I got the gear, I was like, thanks.
What department did you work in at Sam Ash?
Pro audio.
Okay.
Yeah, pro audio. I knew at that point what I was good at is sort of studying stuff and researching. So I had immersed myself in equipment and gear and everything. So I knew it like the back of my hand. So I could tell you about compressors, keyboard. I could tell you about anything on the market. So even before I worked at the music store. So that, you know, when I went in there, they were like, "Oh, you're hired."
Yeah. And then when you left, they're like, "What?"
Yeah. Sam Ash, same thing. I only worked at Sam Ash for about 3.5, 4 weeks. I would say when I came to New York, I knew Diddy. So Diddy was building, he had the Hitman or whatever they were called.
Yep.
So Diddy had that. I knew RZA.
Would you go to Daddy's house?
Not really. Yeah, I was cool. I was already cool with Diddy, and it was like and granted, at that point, Bad Boy had blown up, and it was this thing, and it was all that. So there was a lot going on over there. So I was kind of weary of that for whatever reason, just because it was a lot of people. It wasn't that I didn't necessarily want to work with Puff. I was still cool with Puff. It just was a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know
and
what
also
I mean?
the Hampton Howard thing. You were like,
Yeah, right, exactly. I was like, you Howard. So long story short, so I knew RZA.
Yeah.
And RZA had some guys I really liked. He had like a couple of other producers that he had met from Ohio that were working with him. I can't remember their names. And me and RZA were good friends. So I was like, okay, cool. And then who do I meet in Sam Ash is Wyclef.
As
in,
like he walks in to buy something?
Yeah, he was looking for gear, and he had just gotten this Upper East Side apartment that he had, and he wanted to put gear in it and this and that. And of course, I sold him the gear. It was great. I sold him like $40,000 worth of gear.
Whoa.
Probably sold him gear he didn't need.
Yep,
but, you know,
yeah.
It's what you do when you're on commission. You get a bonus. And I think they were like, who's this guy who's been here for 2 weeks and sold $40,000 worth of gear? So, but long story short, I had those pocket full of tracks.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't, even though it was like a meeting Wyclef, I wasn't a beginner. At that point, I knew a lot of people, and I had experience, and Wyclef lived in Jersey, and he knew KG and those guys. So it wasn't like I was just even though I was brand new, it was almost like I wasn't.
Yeah.
Right. So like you're telling him like this is my resume as well as
So now I'm playing him stuff, and he's like, oh shit. So and what I realized from Clef, like Clef was a musician and a producer, but he didn't really do tracks. You know what I mean? Jerry, his cousin, who's the bass player, Jerry Wonder, did tracks.
Yeah.
But when they did the score, Clef was like the producer and the musician and the vision behind it. But the track makers were like his brother, Jerry, John Forte. So, you know, and I was, once I met Clef and I realized that, I was like, okay, I fit in well here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I make tracks. You know, so we used to do meetings, and it would be me coming with the portable DAT player of like my 50 tracks, and then Clef being the salesman, and that's how we came up with No and some of these things at Destiny Child. It was Clef being Clef and the salesman, and then Che playing Che tracks.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Did you ever ask Wyclef why he was living on the Upper East Side, which is the worst place to live in New York?
You know, I think being an immigrant and growing up in Brooklyn, I think he looked at the Upper East Side as like, I made it, because he always had a house in Jersey. Yeah, he always had a house in Jersey, but I think buying a condo in a prestigious building on the Upper East Side was just like, I made it. Yeah. Because he really did. I mean, he put some really expensive, tacky furniture in it, like almost looked like, Queen Victorian era type furniture, and but it was definitely like a show play, for him.
Yeah.
But essentially, it was really just the studio that I worked out of day and night, and he hardly ever came by.
What kind of hours were you putting in?
At that point, I was, I didn't have any kids, and I had a girlfriend, but I was focused.
Yeah.
Legal trouble helps you focus.
Sure. Yeah.
So I probably put in like literally 12 to 14-hour days and 6 days a week.
Man.
Yeah.
How do you go from doing Destiny's Child stuff with Wyclef to more specific Wyclef stuff?
Well, I would say that we were at the time that I came in. It was after the Fuji stuff, and they'd come off a big tour. I think they still had a lot of Fuji commitments, but I think they all were. And at that point, the talk of a Lauryn solo album hadn't come up, but while he was on tour, he had found samples while he was around the world, and that's where some of the samples that were on the Carnival came from. So he had that in mind. He had this album he had conceptualized. So when I started working with him, like even day one, even though we were shopping tracks for different projects and this and that, he really was focused about Carnival. So it was really about his solo project. And
how much was it on your mind to create this idea of Wyclef as a solo artist rather than like one piece of the Fugees?
Because the Carnival, it was so conceptual. Like, I mean, he really knew what he wanted, meaning he wanted to incorporate, he wanted to incorporate all these textures. So that worked out well for me, because I think when it came to sampling and creating records, I ended up being very eclectic in what I would get all sorts of. I mean, I had calypso records, I had all sorts of stuff. I just was eclectic anyway, you know what I mean?
Eclectic.
Eclectic, perfect, exactly, right? So, my first actual placement and credit is on the Carnival. To all the girls.
Yeah.
How did it feel to actually like be credited for your work?
Oh, it was like that was a game changer. That was like, it's like anything. You give, it's like a kid who never had, who grew up vegetarian and never had a piece of bacon. You give him a piece of bacon, he's like, oh, where's the bacon? So I just wanted more, you know what I mean? So once you got a taste, then it was like, so if I was doing 12 to 14-hour days, and after that I was doing 16-hour days, because I just wanted more, And was it a natural progression just to move to Lauryn at that point? Well, no, I befriended Lauryn along the way, and shout out to Clive Davis, because a lot of people don't realize the impact in urban music that Clive Davis has had. Clive Davis is the person that gave Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis their deal. He's the person that gave L.A. LaFace and Babyface their deal. He's the person that gave Puff his deal. But what a lot of people don't know is he's also very influential. He's the person that gave Lauryn the first opportunity to produce. So same thing. I was the perfect fit because Lauryn, she produced, but she was a good producer in terms of knowing what she wanted, but she didn't actually work the machines or the equipment. So she needed someone like me. And then she got to see me work with Wyclef. She knew the pros and cons of my situation there, and she prayed on that. She was like, so you're not really happy about this, but you know, I'm about to do this and I've got this opportunity. So the first record we did together was, we did 2 records. We did, before we started on the Miseducation, actually, we did Aretha Franklin, A Rose is a Rose. And then we did this, at the time there was a songwriter who's a songwriter who's pretty established songwriter later in the day. Andrea Martin was an artist at the time on Arista. So we did a remix for her. That was the first record we did, was the remix for Andrea Martin. And then we did Aretha.
And there was a comfort there between you guys as songwriters then?
Yeah, I think at that point, me and Lauryn, because we had been friends. Like, you know, I obviously met her with Wyclef and the Fuji stuff, but we sort of established a rapport. So when it was time to, you know, the first record, the Rose of Rose stuff, we did that in her parents' attic.
Really?
You know, yeah. Me, her, and a bass player named Veer Isaac. Shout out to Veer Isaac, because he wasn't happy with everything, but that had nothing to do with me.
Were the acoustics just nice in the attic?
No, I think that's the area, the space she had put aside for her like music room at the time. And it was but it was fun because, I mean, we were all excited. You know what I mean? We were all excited going in there, totally open-minded, you know.
And how do you manage expectations in terms of, you just did this monster record that becomes Carnival, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously everyone's just fiending for this project from Lauryn. How do you not sort of fall prey to everyone's high expectations? Because
she had some shit to get off her chest. So she, I mean, she made it known right from the door, this isn't about that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, whether she went back and did another Fuji record or that, she had the huge commercial success with the Fujis. So I think, I mean, literally, I mean, I can remember like day one, it was like maybe me, her, and James Poyser. And she said, I like soul music, I like reggae, and I like Wu-Tang. Go to work. And that was it. And me and James went to work. And the first record I think we did with her, it's either the first or the second one, was doo-wop.
Wow.
And you incorporated all 3 things.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the goal. I mean, at all times, that's, you know, I tried to have, you know, I think I used to have my 36 Chambers album like just right there at all times. Like I would have like certain inspirations around me at all times. So even if I lost focus or I was struggling one time, you know, I could stop and just put this on the turntable and just sit back and, you know, get high or whatever.
Yeah.
And just listen to, and refocus, you know.
So do you and James play your positions in that, like he's always on the keys and you're always programming?
Me and James, I mean, to this day, we're still like lifelong friends. Like, I mean, like he played at my wedding. I played Zion actually at my wedding. Like we're lifelong friends. So meaning, I think we had just a great rapport in the studio that we could play off each other like instinctively. Yeah. So I could do something or I could do something and he could react to it so great, you know. Man. Like he could, you know, respond to it. Yeah. So it was call and response, meaning he might do something and then I might respond to it, or I might do something and then he'd respond to it. So it was great.
And so Lauryn's record goes crazy and becomes an instant classic. Where do you go from there?
You get lost. You get confused. I would say, and because I'm speaking frankly and I've spoke on it once now, I had never spoken on this publicly before, but until the Paris interview. Then the business of that record wasn't right. I mean, there were records like that I did in my Brooklyn brownstone, like, and then brought to the table and didn't get publishing on. So, and then, and because I had come through Teddy camp, so to speak, or Teddy college, I was very clear into what my contributions meant. You know what I mean? I was always very clear of what my abilities were and what my contributions were. So there was no misunderstanding in terms of, is he a programmer in this sense? Is he a songwriter in this sense? Is he a producer in this sense? I was very clear. I had a very clear understanding of what the business was. Yeah. So me and James Poyser contributed very heavily to 7 or 8 records on the record where we were hardly credited. You know, I'm the only one that got a co-production credit. If you look on the back of the album. But even then, they put an asterisk by it.
Why?
The asterisk to make it say like it's only for one record.
No, but why do you think that the business was just done so poorly?
I feel like the people that Lauryn, you know, I don't know. You know what? I've tried to explain this in the past before. I don't know why. I think everyone has their battles and their demons and whatever they're dealing with. Meaning, I don't think she did it with malice. Right. I don't think there's malice in their heart. I mean, to this day, me and Lauryn are cool.
Yeah,
But
even so, did that break your heart? Was that a little?
It was definitely like a baseball bat of reality. I think one of the reasons I ended up being an A&R and working at a record label was because I wanted to learn it from the other. I felt like I knew the creative side of things, but I didn't know, the business side. And in retrospect, I know now, which you can't get taken advantage of. The only way you get taken advantage of is if you don't have your business and protect yourself.
Yeah.
So the only way you can get ripped off in the music industry because you allowed it to happen.
Right. So did you go to Warner Brothers immediately?
No. I would probably say there was definitely 6 months of like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then, there's just the reality of like, okay, this is actually, you're really getting fucked right now. Like,
yeah. But at the same time, people in the industry probably recognize you at that point as having worked with two just legendary albums at that time with two megastars. Was there a demand for you on the production end in those 6 months?
I would say there's definitely opportunity, but at first, one of the things that I never wanted to be like sort of pigeonholed for a sound. And this was the sort of like neo soul kind of time too. So it was a lot of like, it felt like the opportunities that were coming my way were a lot of neo soul things.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably, in retrospect, I probably should have done quite a bit more of them than I did.
Mm-hmm.
I
did
did
I'll leave that to James.
Yeah, really, because James was from Philly, and these artists were like Jill Scott and Music Soul Child obviously ended up being great. And I wish I was actually, in retrospect, I wish I was a part of some of that, or more a part of some of it. I know them all, but I didn't really gravitate that. Well, I also wanted to see the world, so I went to London. Wow. I started doing some pop stuff in London. I did Cleopatra. I did All Saints. I did some random stuff. I got into music scoring a little bit. I started learning about music scoring, but also took a gig at Warner Brothers. Which is a learning experience.
Yeah. Well, what was it like working in a building?
It was honestly, it was like my really first job. Like, I mean, especially in a corporate job, you know.
Well, longer than 3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, other than that, I mean, my grandmother was like Mike Dukakis' receptionist. So I had like a summer job at the State House where I had to wear like a shirt or something. But other than that.
Yeah, but you weren't wearing a shirt to.
Yeah, but it was like, okay, I got a job and, responsibilities and accountability. But this was actually the time Warner was merging with AOL. So they were going through a period. So we couldn't really do too much. But it was great. It was a great learning experience. I put my office next to business affairs. So I spent a lot of time with business affairs. The guy who hired me is David Kahn. It's like a legendary music producer and record guy. So it was like, he's still to this day kind of like a mentor. He's a genius with gear and equipment. So I worked under David Kahn. So it was like, and then I was next to business affairs. So it was like a crash course of like learning.
Who were some of the artists who were signed over to Warner at that point?
At that time, well, as far as new artists, this was the heyday of Warner on the rock side. This is when they signed Green Day. This is when they signed Linkin Park. All this happened when I was there. On the urban side, not much. I mean, they had a deal with Manuel Seal, so that's why I met Manuel Seal, who did all the So Def stuff with Jermaine. Manuel had a deal. Mike Concepcion had a deal.
Yeah.
But they had like Eric Benet and some of these other people. Wow. I met Eric Benet and who was also friends with James, so it was like small world. But anyway, I met Eric Benet and then I had Jaheim, who was KG's artist. So they had some R&B singers and stuff like that. Shout out to Alison Ball Gabriel because she signed a lot of that stuff.
And did you enjoy that part of your life?
It was a transition period, but it was necessary, And then Tom Wally came over and took over the reins, and that's the first time I saw a guy who you talk about a poker face.
Yeah,
I mean, you could play music for him, you had no idea if you loved it or hated it. I mean, the guy's poker face is like phenomenal.
We ask this a bunch. Like, when you play music for someone, do you watch their reaction?
Yeah, like where are you looking in the room?
I mean, yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, you just I think anybody that's a creative and you share your it's a personal thing. You share, you react. You know what I mean? You want people to like it. It's like it's like that kid in the corner. Hey, I want you to like me. Hey, I want friends. No, but I mean, every time you play a song, that's what it's like. Hey, will you be my friend?
Yeah.
So, and then if they don't like it, then you're like, well, fuck it. Fuck you, I'm gonna put it out anyway.
So how long does your tenure at Warner Brothers last?
Well, fortunately, when Wally came over, I was offered a buyout, so I was able to sort of still get paid for a couple of years and leave.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I could get paid and not work, yeah, let's do that. And then I you know, that led to me showing up on Hans Zimmer's doorstep.
You literally showed up on his
I
doorstep.
did. I'd scored a couple of movies. I scored this British movie called Life and Lyric. I think they kept that as the name. I don't remember. And I did this movie White Boys. A lot of people saw White Boys because they had Danny Hawk in it and so on and so forth.
And that's different from White Chicks.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just making sure.
Yeah. It's funny because all those actors are still very like, just still, you know, I see them all in different things.
The Wayans?
No. Yeah. I haven't seen them lately, no. But
so Hans Zimmer though.
Yeah, when I scored the movie, I had no clue as to what I was doing. No clue. So and got it done. And I was like, you know what? I just looked up like best composers, and it was like 3 or 4 of them, and I just contacted them randomly.
Yeah,
and
John Williams didn't pick up. So.
Yeah. John Williams didn't pick up. Somebody else I did get in touch with, but ended up they didn't really have like, they were in the middle of a film or something, and Hans had like a facility, so it was like, well, yeah, you know, I'm gonna be working or whatever, but yeah, I'll talk to you and at that day, you know, at that point, I didn't come empty-handed. I had a, you know, Grammy for Album of the Year.
Yeah.
So I didn't come in empty-handed. I think if I had just come in empty-handed, I don't think they would let me in the door.
Did you bring the Grammy with you? Like,
yeah.
Did you bring the asterisk with you?
So was Hans living in New York or Los
No,
Angeles?
Los Angeles, Santa Monica.
So
well, he lived in Malibu. But.
So you knock on that door, and what did you want out of that relationship?
To learn, you know, to learn. I felt like I could contribute because, you know, to me, whether if you're doing a big blockbuster movie, now obviously there's certain ones like Gladiator that don't, you know, respond. But I also feel like when you're doing sort of more the mainstream, you need some cool shit in a movie, and I do cool shit.
Yeah.
So that was really my pitch to him.
That's awesome.
I was like, hey, I can come do cool shit. I'm not a classically trained composer, but I do cool shit, and I played him some shit. And it was
cool shit should be like on your LinkedIn. Like,
yeah. And that got me in the door.
And
you know?
And what kind of stuff did you work on with him?
You know, at that point, I also discovered music licensing. So they had a deal with this company called Extreme, which they still have a deal with, which that's like the mass production of licensing. But it was great because, you know, I bought my first house from licensing deals. Wow. So if you're a music producer or songwriter, you should learn about licensing thinking. It's here, you know, but it could pay that mortgage for you one day. So I did additional production on just like, I don't know, over 200 different things.
Wow.
I had a list of it one day. They sent me a list just so I'd have it. It was like over 200 different programs, from like everything from like ESPN stuff to, you know, big movies, and, you know, where I would just do production. Because it was great, because when Hans worked on a movie, Hans writes a theme. And that could be like the theme of the movie, and then you could reinterpret, you know, so he could give you the theme, and then you could reinterpret the movie different ways.
Yeah, totally.
But, you know, at that point, Hans was already Hans. I wasn't really working on Hans shit. I was working on some of the other guys. So.
Do you miss like commercial music at all, or are you just like, well, this is where I want to be?
At that point, no, because I still was on sort of the journey of, you know, but I had friends that were doing great things, so I was kind of, you know, you start looking over like, oh damn, I should be doing that too. But you know, I had at that time, I had this amazing room in Santa Monica at this composer's facility, working with these really talented composers. Every day was exciting. You know, I mean, I got the best lessons just walking the halls at 2 a.m. and like, you know, having red wine with one of the composers, and he's showing me stuff he's doing. It's like the music business. I mean, just music all brand new all over again, because I'm learning a whole different skill set and different, you know, so that was great.
Did you get to see any of your compositions be played by a giant orchestra?
My stuff was still the cool stuff. They didn't get the orchestra stuff, so not really. My stuff was pretty much like, oh shit, we're gonna keep it exactly like this. That's, you know, and just put it right in, because we don't know what to do with that, so just let it be, you know.
So how long did you do cool shit with Hans Zimmer?
Well, up until he had a partner, this guy named Jay Rifkin, and then they ended up suing each other. So when they ended up suing each other, that ended up being a kind of long, drawn out thing. So when and right around that time, which is funny, coincidentally, like coincides with I was getting the itch to get back into doing production. And a friend of mine, actually Tough from Channel Live, he introduced me, him and Mike City introduced me. They took me to an Aftermath holiday party, and where I met Dre.
So you meet Dr. Dre. And was there an immediate connection there?
I think we hit it off, but it was more so like he opened the door to like, hey, if you got some tracks, come play me some stuff. And at that point, I had been like quietly plotting my way back into the music industry, so I had some stuff.
Yeah.
So I kept he would I'd show up, play him some stuff. I'd say every time I went for about 3 weeks, he took something, which is great. I never brought too many things too. I'd bring like maybe four tracks or something, and out of the 4, he'd like 1 or 2 or something like that.
Good
and
ratio.
then, yeah, which led to him offering me like a producer deal first. And then the producer deal led to him inviting me into his immediate production circle.
So we just had Primo and Royce da 5'9" on, and they said that Dre's speakers hit harder than any other speakers in the world.
Yeah, like way louder.
What was your experience with his rooms?
Yes, but even now he's beats Dr. Dre. So now his budget's even more ridiculous. So the studio is even more ridiculous, and the speakers sound even crazier. But during my tenure, yes, his speakers definitely always knocked.
Did your beats sound better on his speakers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Everything sounds better in Dre's studio.
Do you appreciate his SSL board?
Oh, the one that he gifted me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. It's right now. It's sitting there. It's not being used because these new rappers today don't use SSLs. They just use it
as a table.
Yes, exactly. It's like a big, attractive audio table. But what I appreciate about Dre is definitely the perfectionist. I had never witnessed a perfectionist to that level.
But isn't that also frustrating?
It can be. I mean, but I mean, at that point, I was just witnessing, I was just a witness of this guy's amazing journey. So being one of the witnesses of that, it's amazing. It's like playing on the team with Jordan or something.
What's the longest that you spent on like the most minor thing?
Oh, hours. That could be hours on a hi-hat or something like that. Hours. I mean, days. I mean, please, tracks. We could work on a track for months. It'd be revisiting the same track where you're like, it's fire. The track's dope. But if it ain't, and it won't ever come out either if he doesn't, he's got time on his hands.
Yeah. So, and it was it was you, Scott Storch, Mike Elizondo.
No, my real team was Storch was more of a guest in and out. Like he'd come, sometimes he'd there, but really the main squad that I was a part of, which was my team, was Elizondo, me, and Batson, Mark Batson. So Batson was a guy that I worked with. So when Dre brought me in, I said, hey, there's this guy I work with pretty closely, and I introduced him to Mark, and they hit it off well.
Did you know Scott Storch from his Roots days?
I did know. I met Scott originally at Larry Gold's studio in Philly.
Wow. Because
James Poyser had a room there at Larry Gold's studio, so that's where I met Scott originally. So I've known him throughout the years, but I got to know him better, obviously, during the Dre years. Because I knew him in passing and say hello, but I knew him better, during the Dre years. Yeah. And he would come. He might come for a week or something like that.
Did you see it for him back in the Philly days?
No. No. I mean, he was talented, but I don't know if it's, once again, it's because I do know music. The chords from Still Dre are the chords from Doo-Wop. I'm just saying. Coincidence? I don't know. I'm just saying. Philly? I don't know. Coincidence? Keyboard players? Yes, Scott, I do know that.
So what are some of the things that you start working on in the early days for Dre?
Early days, it was Game.
Yeah.
So when I came in the door, that was Game's first album.
Wow.
So I did the intro on Game's album with Dre. I did Higher with Dre, and then I worked on some of the other tracks. Because what Dre used to do back then too was basically take other people's tracks and perfect them. So
sort of like Scott Storch.
So so that's why to me the Game's first album is so good. I think you have producers that think, oh, I did that track on it. And yeah, you did that track, but the reason it sounds so good is because Dre came behind it and made it sound fucking amazing. So, and that's why the Game's first album to me is so good. I think artists, there's so many things that go into making a record and making a great record, and artists have this success and they don't know all those things, and so they go on and think they can do it themselves. You see the pattern.
Yeah.
Game did it. 50 did it. The only person who really didn't do it was M. M was like, no, I see what this is. hey, stay next to you. You know what I mean? And shout out to M for recognizing that there is something special that these guys bring to a record. Don't have success and then think you can do it yourself, and then the rest of your records are not nearly as good.
Do you have any feeling on what 50 claims in terms of that half of Game's first album was really his?
Well, I mean, until a record comes out, nothing's yours. I mean, yeah, were we making some of the records? Yeah, some of the records were ideas for 50 and this and that. But it's like if you're making different records at the time, okay, if we use it on your record, then great. And if it came out, but if your record, that happens all the time, though. Yeah. So I've seen records, some people aren't happy about it, but I've seen records taken back and given there, and this was for this and this and that. I mean, Niggas in Paris was supposed to be a Pusha T record. It was given to Pusha T at first. Pusha didn't see it for him, maybe, and it probably wouldn't have been what it was, but it was originally went to Pusha T before it was Kanye and thing. So that happened.
If it was Pusha's, if it ended up being Pusha's, could you see him performing it 12 times in a night?
Well, I just think it would have been a different record then. You know what I mean? It would have been a Pusha T record. And I don't know that beat was a Pusha T beat, but it just shows that, that shit happens all the time, So is 50 right? Yeah, but does that make a difference? Like it came out on Games records. It's Games records.
So I heard you say something like you were making beats for Dre for 8 years.
Yeah, with Dre. I wouldn't say 4. I'd say with him. Yeah, well, because he sat right next to me.
So what percentage of the records were for Dre and for projects that never?
Well, there's probably 400 beats in his. There's probably literally 400 beats that me, Elizondo, Batson, we're all a part of that are in Dre's safe.
And you love them all, and you think they're all.
I mean, we would go to Hawaii and we'd be in Hawaii for 3 weeks and we'd do 75 tracks.
Oh my god.
So like this, and we did that multiple times, let alone what we did every day. You know? So 400 was just a light estimate. There's probably 1,000.
Is it hard for you to let your mind wander to something new? Are you stuck on like a certain sound?
No, always.
And are you searching for something to sort of please the guy to actually put it out?
Well, with Dre, I mean, I think you're trying to always do something impactful that can stick. So when you're working and you're throwing out, because you got to think there's 3 other guys and we're just throwing ideas, and he's the guy in the middle sort of helming the ship. So you're just trying to get you're just trying to get an idea. And what is great though when you're working with great musicians like Batson and Elizondo, because when you get an idea that sticks, then they can add to it and sprinkles all day. So it's just about trying to get things that stick.
After 8 years with Dre, how do you navigate your way past Aftermath?
I realized, I for those that don't know, I named Beats by Dre.
Really?
The headphone company, yes. And along the way, I started seeing Dre and Jimmy looking at other opportunities. He was looking at liquor opportunities. He was looking at different things. So I got to see that, okay, he was already looking at what's next. So I think I started doing the same, and I started researching and learning more. And that's when the finance major stuff started helping out. I started learning about investing and learning, and all those things. And so I started getting back into that side of the brain.
Well, how did you come up with the name for it? I mean,
Well, that's a friend of mine. The whole time, damn near, I was working with Dre. A friend of mine who's one of the top executives at Reebok, who I grew up with, was saying, hey, we want to pitch Dre a sneaker deal or whatever, They were still in the business of trying to sign. Dre had always said, hey, I'm not really a fashion guy, I don't think. And he's like, I only wear Air Force Ones, like white, low-top Air Force Ones. That's all I wear. So I don't really see myself as that. But in this era of when he was looking at different opportunities, he finally agreed to like, hey, let me hear a pitch. I think his lawyer had said, hey, Dre, you can make a lot of money with this. So so he agreed to a pitch. So they showed me the pitch first. And the pitch was very bland. And I was like, you got to personalize it. So I literally named the sneaker Beats by Dre. So the famous story is Jimmy and Dre walking on the beach where he says, fuck sneakers, let's do speakers.
Yes.
And Dre's like, I got the perfect name, Beats by Dre. That's his history. $1 billion later.
Yeah, there's only one set of footprints in the sand because you were
Jay
always
was
there.
carrying them.
Yeah. So after that, where do you find yourself?
I was going to do a company with this guy, Chris Baker, who was married into the Campbell Soup family. So we had a company that he had funded for about $2 million. But then him and his wife ended up divorcing.
Oh, my God.
So that dissolved that idea. But I had the idea. So the idea
You find yourself in a bunch of situations where people end up fighting and then separating, and that sort of screws you.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that was, you know.
Well, actually, did we talk about this? What did Wyclef think about you working with Lauryn?
Well, originally he thought he was going to do the album. Like he was, you know, I think he was delusional in that regard because I don't think she had any. Obviously, the album was about him.
Yeah.
So I don't think she had any intention whatsoever of working with him on the record. But he initially thought he was going to be producing the record. So
surprise.
Yeah. You know, but you know, at that point, I looked at things like, listen, we're grown men. You know, like, you know, if you don't question my decision, cool, you question my decision, but I'm a grown man. Like, you got your life, I got my life. You know. So
after the Campbell's thing doesn't work.
Yeah, so that was sort of the tail end of Dre thing. I started just looking at different things. I had some friends that were wealthy business investment type people, and so we started meeting with different people. And actually, when I first met with Kanye, it was potentially to invest in his clothing brand. This is when he did not have a clothing brand yet.
So was this going to be for Pastel?
Yeah, this was post Pastel and whatever the new thing was going to
Gotcha.
be. And this was Watch the Throne time, because it was literally like Watch the Throne rehearsals I was meeting him at.
Wow.
And things of that nature. So I was investing, and at the time he was putting on a fashion show in Paris, but there was no clothing company really. There was no infrastructure. There was no business plan. So the guy that wanted to invest in it wasn't necessarily. He was like, well, you know, there's no business plan. So. And that's when Kanye was like, well, you know, I have the label. You know, can you help me? You know, you want to help me with the label? And
you said,
well, you know, at the time, it wasn't like I had all this other stuff going on. I just left Dre, and honestly, I was actually very excited to work with Kanye, because it was, to me, it was, you know, it was the next challenge in terms of my career, and I just thought he was one of the most innovative and fearless artists out there. Mm-hmm. So that attracted me very much, to just be working with someone who was just fearless and good. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, you could be fearless all day, but if you're fearless and you're just on your own island, and really good.
Yeah. So did you go to any of the Watch the Throne?
I did.
Sessions?
I went to Watch the. No. Watch the Throne was finishing up. They were just getting ready to start the tour. So I ended up going on the tour. And then we worked on music at the time. We were working on that the Crew Winter album or Crew Summer album and things of that nature, which led to, you know, I put together Mercy, me and him, because I had this producer that I had found in Phoenix. So I had like Mercy in my pocket for like 7 months.
Oh my God.
And then it was like just fine. And then when he told me about the project, I was like, oh, I got the perfect record for this project. And then, you know, we, you know, Clef said, you know, I mean, not Clef. Kanye's, you know, that's where Kanye's genius comes into play. He was like, man, there's this guy Twilight Tone that I work with from Chicago, this legendary DJ. Twilight Tone's the one who put the reggae sample in it. So I had this track, Lamborghini to Mercy, and then once you put the reggae sample in it, that was everything.
Oh my God.
And then you have Mike Dean add some stuff, and now it's Lamborghini Mercy.
Yeah.
So that was like the first thing I did with Kanye. So
that's a good start.
Yeah, it was a good start. So we did that, and Cruise Summer. I mean, Cruise Summer, a lot of it was done on the road and traveling, so I think the record wasn't as cohesive as we wanted it to be, because I think it really could have been even like one of the super, like, could have been a classic. But you know, Mercy came out of it, Click came out of it, a couple other really good records are on there. So I was still very proud of the
you know,
I don't know how Kanye feels about the record, but I was still very proud of the record.
And then after Cruel Summer
is Yeezus.
Yeah, and and then good music, just good music itself, just being involved with good music and getting to know Pusha and Sean and these different artists and these talents and Teyana, and then eventually Yeezus. Yeezus was challenging. Yeah, because you know that was like a frontier that hadn't been crossed yet
in terms of sound,
and we did most of it in Paris. So it was like you're making this sonic exploration in a foreign city. Yeah, which also brings challenges of just spending time in a foreign city for that amount of time.
How's your French?
Terrible. I don't speak a word of it. I mean, when I was there, I knew like right, left, water, you know, no thank you, you know, the basics.
Champagne.
Yeah.
When I was in Paris, I listened to French Montana because when in Rome, you know.
Yeah.
But what did you listen to like inspire you throughout the process? Or is it just like you're making music and that's...
No, I would... Justice. I can't speak for anyone else.
Yeah.
I was listening to Justice. I just like Justice too. Plus, Justice has the angst. Yeah. And I was looking for
and
angst.
They're French.
Yeah. That was coincidental. But I also listened to like, you know, I was listening to like drum and bass, early Tricky. Although, you know, that my influences that what I was listening to didn't come in the album. We were just really trying to disrupt, sound, I guess, you know what I mean? So it was great just to see him put these different people like Estelfacine and Bordinsky working on the project, and then Justin Vernon and incorporating all these things. Me and Noah went to Jamaica, and we worked with the kid Assassin. We had this kid Evian Christ. It was like this almost sonic noise type track. So incorporating and then having what's the guy's name? I can't think of his name. The Venezuelan producer, songwriter, Arca.
Oh,
and incorporating like having Arca, and then you mix those with like, Sham and some of these hip hop producers and that energy and 88 keys and so and then you come up with Jesus. Well, so that was great. It was an amazing experience.
But do we understand this correctly that or I'm sure there were hundreds of versions of Yeezus, but like that it was more colorful initially?
No.
Okay.
No. I wouldn't say that. I mean, there were tracks that, all the tracks went through various journeys and phases. The track was started off with, Kanye and they started the record off with Daft Punk. So it was just Kanye and Daft Punk. And the first 2 records they worked on were On Sight and I Am a God. And, the first version, the original version of I Am a God, to this day, I still love the original version of I Am a God.
So just give it to us.
Yeah. I don't have it, but if I did, I might bootleg it.
Yeah.
But that was inspiring enough, just hearing those 2 tracks, and he just had maybe like a reference freestyle on it, but just hearing those 2 shit was like, oh shit, what's this shit?
Yeah.
Like On Sight. It was like, and it was all over the place. It hadn't been arranged or anything yet. It was like this manic. I was like, oh,
So you have like, there's a clear line of like everything up to the last track, which is Bound 2. What was the conversation like in putting that song together and also including it on the album?
It was kind of funny because I gave him that track and that idea early in the process, and of course he was on total like distortion mode, disruption. He was like, "Nah, we're not doing soul samples, Che. Like, get out of here with that shit."
He'd be terrible at improv, by the way. No.
And then he had a record that I think he had been working on with No ID. That was some kind of soul record too, and that's where that hook came from with the Charlie Wilson idea. And which is why if you see the publishing credits on Bound, No Idea has publishing credits on it.
With an asterisk.
Yes, definitely with an asterisk. So that original chorus, just the Mike Dean thing and the Charlie Wilson thing came from a different idea. And then Kanye being the genius that Kanye is, put them together. Shout out to Kanye for that. And shout out to Mike Dean for the bass line, the move bass line. But Charlie Wilson, oh my God, that guy's amazing. We talk about, the guy just come from like Japan doing shows. I don't know, he's in his 60s. And it was like, man, she's like, Che, I just got off a plane. I probably got like, I don't know, maybe an hour that I could do, and just nailed the vocal. Like, I was like, Jesus, this guy's,
he's the best.
Yeah, man, he is a god.
So, what role do you attribute to Rick Rubin?
The sensei. I think it doesn't matter if you could be a master, a Jedi, whatever. You still need your. You still need your Yoda. You still need your sensei. Rick was the sensei. Kanye needed a sensei at that point. Kanye doesn't need anybody. You know what I mean? Kanye can make an album himself. Like he's doing now. But he also can work with great contributors. And in this case, Rick was the sensei.
Yeah,
someone to bounce ideas off of, give some feedback to.
Is Bound True your favorite track off that album?
No, On Sight and Send It Up. Yeah, I like Bound. Obviously I like Bound, but I like Kanye's verse and King Louis' verse on Send It Up. That's one of my favorites, and On Sight is my favorite.
Did you see him on tour perform that stuff live?
Yep. Yeah.
And
definitely.
does that bring something totally different to the table?
I think the tour itself is an amazing experience because who else had a moving mountain, floating mountain, and a procession of naked whatever I don't know what you call it, naked procession, but
I think the Yin Yang Twins did that first.
Yeah, exactly. And the mask. I forget. Let's not mention the bejeweled masks, the custom made masks that I literally went with him one day and met him. It was like a mask fitting. It was amazing. Like they took molds and stuff like that. I didn't realize how involved that was.
Did you also get a mask?
No, I can't afford those. Please, that mask costs more than my house.
What can you say about Sean and Teyana and Pusha as creatives?
They're dope. Each person is their own person, and I think everyone has their own experiences. Meaning Pusha grew up in Virginia and then came through the Neptunes thing and had experiences, with making music with his brother and Pharrell, and then moving into, growing and maturing as musician and artist, but also a businessman. You know, you can't. Big Sean went through, you know, to make it from coming from Detroit is just that much harder. You know, he rapped at a radio station, got his deal, and then he had to like navigate. Okay, now I got a deal. Okay, and from being mixtape Sean to how do I sell records Sean, you know, and sell records and sell things. And Teyana's still in that journey. And Teyana's becoming more of a multimedia platform, you know what I mean, using film and television and these other avenues to sort of help it. But she's still learning that as far as on the music side, where those guys have figured it out. Teyana's still figuring it out.
By the way, I think we both agree. Her first album is pretty underrated.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. First one to complete a project on Teyana. It was definitely tough.
Yeah.
But you know, she's opinionated, she's strong-minded, and strong-willed, you know, and I do think Def Jam really did not service the record, because I still have people stop me on the street and bring up the Teyana record, and I'll be like, oh,
yeah,
you know, and like catch me off guard. They'd be like, you guys should have did better promoting that record, you know, like almost like threatening me like that. I'm like, okay, sorry, what's it me? I don't do marketing. I'm not a marketer.
How is Pusha different as president than you and your administration?
Well, I don't think I was really ever president. I don't really have a title at Good. I mean, I'm one of the people, like, I would say me and Noah, Kanye's engineer, our title should be, we just get shit done.
It's a long title.
Yeah.
It's not a really catchy.
That literally would be our title. And you know, Pusha's an artist, you know, so Pusha's, you know, he's a very I think the reason he works as an executive in the thing, he's very opinionated. So his opinions on this artist or that artist, or who you should sign or what could go on with that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I would say the glue of it over the years, because we have been understaffed, has been me and Noah, because we're just, you know, there's a lot of contributors, people come in and this out, but over the last, since I've been there, the glue of it's probably been me and Noah, where, you know, I would say my job would be get shit done.
Yeah.
You know, because it doesn't matter, you know, whether it's an A&R thing or if it's this or that, it's just get shit done. You know, whether I'm uploading Shake's project to mastering, or, you know, sitting there with Jules and, you know, spending time, you know, educating a manager to the system of Def Jam, you know, and acquainting people with that, you know.
Well, how do you like the majors right now?
That opinion could get me shot.
Okay.
They're evolving, and that's good. Better late than never. There's still quite a bit more they could do and be, and so on and so forth. I mean, you know, it's not about market share. You know, it's about artists. You know, and I think until you make it about artists and art, and my premise is artists need to own in their art, and so till artists own in their art, fuck them.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of majors out there who will sign everyone who has one hot song immediately, and that's the way that they think that they can get the market share and get the artists.
Yep.
Well, also just to give them like a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And then
we'll give them a little bit of money, but you know, I've also heard, you know, like when certain artists have been like, hey, you know, I want to do a profit share deal, and they're like, oh, you're talking crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, why not? Like, why not? If you're, you know, if you're a app developer and you go to a VC and they fund your company, you still own. So why don't artists own?
Yeah, right. Why don't you all grow together, you know, as
exactly.
opposed to
business partners,
you know.
yeah. Versus you just take my ticket sales and my publishing and this and that. And I understand that the economics have changed, but you know, if the artists don't own in their art, then they don't own in that payout from streaming that they pay the master owner.
You know, you guys just announced that you signed Valee.
Yes, he's dope.
He's amazing. I love him.
Shout out to
Andrew
Monopoly.
Barber.
Yeah, shout out to Andrew Barber. Shout out to John Monopoly.
Yeah.
When was he first put on your radar? And
actually,
what did you see in him?
John Monopoly is the one who brought it to the table. But prior to that, because I have to bring this up because Young Chop called me and reminded me that he played me Valee a long time ago. So shout out to Young Chop. It was John Monopoly's play though. John Monopoly has a history with Kanye and so on and so forth. So John Monopoly is the one who works closely with Andrew Barber still, and he's the one that sort of brought it to the table. And you know, so I have to give him credit for that. You know, but I thought the kid was dope. You know, why when Chop played it for me, I slept on it, I don't know. But, you know, who knows what was going on in life at that time, you know. But, and I don't know if it was as evolved as it is now, but he did, you know. But, you know, it was really, Monop was the one who campaigned that.
And how many new artists are being played for you like at all time? Because I read a story about you listening to a kid from Texas, same town as Travis Scott.
Yeah.
And he approached you and you listened to his music, and I thought that was, you know, surprising because it could just be anybody.
I mean, I try to listen to everybody's music. I just spoke at Harvard Business School last week, and literally I've got Harvard kids sending me their projects, and I've just been listening to like Harvard Business School rappers, which is interesting.
Are they?
Yeah, one kid's pretty,
yeah.
kid's pretty good. I can't. I would love to shout him out right now, but I don't remember his name. But he's pretty good.
You just don't want anyone else to sign him. Is what
Yeah,
you don't,
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what. But no, I mean, I love, you know, it's about the young artists. This whole thing, everything we do, and like we're doing, it's about, if it's not for new artists and them keeping the spirit alive, and you know what I mean? Because to me, you know, other guys, they got enough money. You know what I mean? Hopefully they invest well, but it's really about the youth. You know? In my opinion. But.
Yeah. And what do you think about the whole evolution of The Life of Pablo? How it continued, even though it was officially put out on streaming services, to
it was dope.
Get different mixes, get different.
It was dope. I was asked a question before, like someone said to me in some interview, they were like, "Wasn't Life of Pablo the worst rollout, and you were part of it, and this and that?" I said, "For who?"
Yeah.
I said, "Ask yourself that question. For who? Was it the worst rollout for Kanye? Or was it the worst rollout for Universal?" You do the math.
What is the sound of one hand clapping?
Yeah.
It's become real.
You know what I mean? So, you know, and you know, I think Life of Pablo is an amazing project.
Yeah.
I think the records are dope. I think there's some records where they're just a vibe. It's not even a song, it's a vibe. Like Fade is just a vibe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's records where it's like, I mean, Kanye, I think, got what, 4 bars on it, 8 bars or something, like, you know. Shit's dope though. It's a vibe. So Life of Pablo, you know, shout out to Life of Pablo.
Do you miss the old Kanye?
I miss the old Kanye. I like the new Kanye. I mean, Kanye, you know what I like about Kanye? Because he's always a different person. Maybe it's the Gemini in him. You know, he's just, you know, my wife's a Gemini too, and Lauryn Hill's a Gemini. All these Geminis around me. But he's always a different person, so you never know what you're going to get. I mean, I've been in conversation with where he's referenced Brazilian architects, and I've had to go back. I've had to take notes quietly without anyone looking, and then go research what he just brought up in the conversation. You know what I mean? So I love that he's constantly learning, exploring whatever his journey is, whether it's fashion or whatever his interest is. It's, you know, these amazing artists that he works with, or that he, you know, makes me aware of shit, that because he goes so hard at the stuff, you know, and he's got so many people bringing him so much information that he's constantly evolving and learning, and that's impressive to me.
Can you talk about going to the Louvre by yourselves at night? I
used to do that because, well, first of all, you can't see the Louvre in one day. Right. You know, and I never really went with Kanye. I would go on my own, but Kanye went. You know, same thing. It's just you can't not be in Paris and not do like Versailles and the Louvre and be inspired by, you know, everything, because it's one of those cities. It's an old city, and there's so much inspiration there, and it's so much battery for your tank if you use it. You know what I mean? Like, so I would just go in there, and, you know, you come back and just cook.
Do you walk around in silence, or were you listening on headphones to anything, or
just walking around absorbing? I mean, some days I did listen to music, but I like just going there randomly, like without even telling me where I'm going. I would just go and just, you know. Yeah, I mean, to the point that the security guard started recognizing me.
What does LA mean to you?
LA, quality of life. Waking up every day in the sunshine. I mean, it's you know, growing up in Boston. I mean, I literally called my dad and I was like, why didn't you move?
Right. This is the sunshine that you wanted when you were going to.
Yeah, I was like,
basketball.
why did you decide to reside in Boston and stay in Boston? Like, when you could have moved and had sunshine every day, all the time of the year, like, and go to the beach and go to the mountains and do this, and, you know. He was like, "Yeah, you're probably right."
But what does it mean for your creative process?
Sunshine. I mean, I got a skylight. The one of the reasons I even took this little creative space is because it had a skylight.
Yeah.
But I like it also that, you know, shit, I can leave right now and just go to the beach and just kick it at the beach.
Yeah.
And take a beat machine with me, or, you know, I got beat machines that are rechargeable, you know, or take a laptop and just work and be at the beach and just, you know.
But you don't need those clouds, you don't need a little darkness to sort of like change your whole, like.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, sometimes, and then I just go to New York for that.
Yeah.
You know, go to New York, you know, run the streets at night, you know what I mean, and then, you know, and then hit the studio, you know, do the New York thing.
Can you create?
Get the angst.
Can you create on airplanes?
I can.
Yeah.
I can, especially overseas airplanes, like long flights. Yeah.
Oh, like overnight?
Yeah, like those long 10-hour, 12-hour flights. You know, like Asia. I go to Asia a lot. So, yeah, those are good.
Oh yeah. Talk about being in a writer's room with like the YG Collective in Korea.
It's fun because it's a different song camps. I'd never done song camps. A lot of singers and songwriters, that's popular these days. So I was actually speaking at one in Norway, and then I was like, you know what? I want to try it and participate. And the first one I did, my first ever K-pop song, was about a dog. It was a horrible song, but I think we should license it to like every I think it could be in every cartoon. I'm actually trying to get a copy of the song right now because I think it could be in every cartoon. It was the most horrible song ever, but I knew nothing about K-pop at the time. I feel very versed in it now. And I was working with these guys, and I mean, they weren't even full-time producers. One of the guys was an air traffic controller. And it's funny, like, shout out to Norwegians in the Scandinavia region, and they're so talented.
Yeah.
Like, this guy was probably more talented than like 90% of the producers in the U.S., but he was an air traffic controller and only did tracks on the weekends and the evenings. But anyway, so I started participating in the song camps, and these guys, these Norwegian writers and these Swedish writers, they were big K-pop writers, number one. Like, the top guys in this camp were like big K-pop writers.
Wow.
So I started doing stuff with them, and yeah, so it's been fun. I enjoy it.
How's your
It's a different muscle. Huh?
How's your Korean?
Terrible, but I mean, I have a lot of Korean friends and a lot of, Japanese and Asian friends. So now, like, I enjoy, like, CL, who just closed the Olympics, went to Olympics. She's a good friend.
Yep.
And working on her project, we'll see. Her project's been a journey as well. She's
we saw her here 2 years ago, right after she partnered up with Scooter Braun and all that.
Yeah, she's
the
great.
project's still not out.
Yeah, but she's figuring out. She got records. Now it's just a matter of figuring out the right means of how they're gonna put it out and this and that. They had gone down a path, and I think they doubled back.
All right. We saw you pictured with BJ the Chicago Kid.
BJ's dope. We got some shit we're about to do.
All right.
Yeah, that's dope.
And what else are you working
And then
on?
what about Bootsy?
Bootsy is the one. Bootsy's he's gonna choke me. Bootsy. I have to finish his remix today.
Wow.
I have a remix I'm doing with Bootsy. It's he's already got Caliuchis on his single. I love Bootsy to death. I think it's the return of the bass line. I think Bruno Mars is really one of the people that helped bring the bass line back. Shout out to Bruno for that. And that's the pop way of it. But, on another note of it, if you think about Redbone, that's Bootsy. Redbone, Childish Gambino. So you have sort of the pop guys bringing it back. I mean, Chromeo, to me, always a champion the bass line.
Yeah.
I mean, they were big, so
They're the Funk Lords.
So I had to go find Bootsy. I had literally tracked him down, and I knew Snoop knew how to find him. I knew Snoop knew him. So I hit Snoop, and I was like, "Yo, I gotta find Bootsy." And he put me in touch with Bootsy, and and Bootsy came through, and we've been chopping it up, and we're gonna make records together. And so we're starting with his remix.
Does Bootsy, when he's not on, is he always on?
Yes, he's Bootsy. You can't be Bootsy and not be Bootsy.
The sunglasses, the hat, the whole thing.
Yep, him and his wife, beautiful wife and beautiful spirits. He's never not Bootsy.
Oh,
see, like, he can hold on to his accent. You just can't hold on to yours.
Well, he still lives in Ohio. I mean, he lives. If I go back to Boston, it'll be back fast. It'll be I'll be everything will be, comes back.
Oh, well, congratulations on everything.
All right.
Thank you so much for being a part of this.
This was fun. This was fun.
Yeah. And hopefully we see you soon. If not here, then maybe at Mike Dean's pool house.
Yeah, exactly. They painted the wall.
Yeah.
They painted the wall. Shout out to Russell Peters.
Most definitely.
You punk.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thanks everyone for listening to this new episode of A Waste of Time with It's The Real. Jeff, if people want to find out more about us, we are It's The Real. If people want to find out more about this podcast, it's called A Waste of Time with It's The Real, and we have 174 other episodes that people can dive into. If people want to find out what bench we're sitting on in Austin, Texas, Jeff, where can they go?
You can always go to our website, ItsTheReal.com, ItsTheReal. As always, no apostrophes and no spaces. Whenever you write our name, you can always find our podcast on SoundCloud.com/A Waste of Time. You can also find them on iTunes. Search for A Waste of Time with It's The Real. If you're looking for our music, it is on Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, Google Play.
Jeff, we are nearing 1 million plays on Spotify alone. Shout out to everybody who has been playing our music. We've seen the numbers going up steadily. Shout out to all you guys who have been adding our song Sugar High to your playlist.
Also, Girl, Your Ass is Like a Metaphor.
Hey!
If you're looking for our book, because we have a book.
We have a book.
It is on pre-order at Amazon.com. Search for Rhyme Book by Jeff Rosenthal and Eric Rosenthal.
It's a lined notebook with plenty of original It's the Real content in there. There's games, there's graphs, there's quotes from this very here podcast that will inspire you. It's a chance for you to write down your dreams, your goals, your hooks, your verses.
If you want to do a to-do list, if you want to do a to-don't list, if you want to write down people's names of people you hate, that is all appropriate for this book.
That's on you guys. Whatever you want to do with it, it's an excellent book. It's called Rhyme Book, and it's available for pre-order on Amazon.com.
Yes. If you're looking for us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at It's The Real, Facebook at It's The Real, Instagram at It's The Real. We are also on Snapchat at It's The Real, and on Twitch at It's The Real, but we haven't used either Snapchat or Twitch in like forever. So just follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
Jeff, you know this podcast isn't going anywhere unless we get you guys, our loyal listeners and friends and family, to spread the word to your loyal listeners. Anybody who listens to you, spread the word about this very here podcast, A Waste of Time with It's The Real, and let's double up our audience. Jeff, who do you want to shout out?
I want to shout out Erica Ramirez, who we saw when we were out in LA. We got some barbecue with her. I also want to shout out Judnicki. We all went out together to get some breakfast, and we sat next to Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
That was dope.
Incredibly dope. I also want to shout out the people at Hip Hop Heads on Reddit, because apparently some guy was talking about us on there.
Shout out to everybody on Reddit.
That is a good community for us to be a part of. And so, yeah, shout out to everybody on the internet.
If you're on Reddit, go spread the word about A Waste of Time with It's The Real. Jeff, I want to shout out our longtime friend and partner in music, Greg Mayo, who has done all of the It's The Real music, including the theme song, Suns Out, Guns Out, for this podcast of ours, A Waste of Time with It's The Real. If you guys love the music, go to Instagram. Let's follow him there, at Greg Mayo Music, and let him know that you like the music, you love the music, and maybe you want some music. Because, Jeff, I say this because somebody reached out to Greg and was like, I so appreciate that theme song. I want one of my own for my podcast. And what did we tell Greg?
Don't do it.
We said, unless it's a brand new beat for him, don't give him the fire that you've given us for our second album. Thanks again to everybody who has spread the word about this podcast. Let's keep it going. Keep listening to the music. Keep buying that book. Send it up the charts. Let's make this 2018 even better than it's already been. As always, Jeff, not for real, for real.
Sure.
See you guys next week.